guys, it's Abby. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be telling you some short, scary stories that will definitely keep you up tonight. If you guys like this video, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up. If you are new here, click the subscribe button down below and turn on post notifications so you never miss a video. I post every Sunday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for Spooky Sundays. And other than that, let's just hop straight on into the video. Our first story is by the user Jernankum Studios. And it's called I Have Died. I'm dead, I think. I have peacefully passed away with my family surrounding me. I never believed in anything, not once. I always thought that once you're gone, no coming back. Then what is this? Where am I? I looked up, or at least followed the motions of looking up. I reached my bodiless hand out of me. Nothing. I felt nothing. But then why can I reach my hand out at all? If my body is gone, then why must my mind persist? I walked forward, but soon realized there was no forward, nor was there a backward. In fact, there was no direction anywhere. Despite this, I felt as though I retained a sense of direction. I can imagine left as well as I can imagine right, but neither was possible. I soon realized that my thoughts and memories were empty. I have no idea who I am, who I was. I have an idea of who I knew when I was alive, but I couldn't quite pinpoint anything. It was as though I became nothing, but was aware of my nothingness. Time didn't exist either. It felt like seconds and centuries would pass by simultaneously. The unbearable feeling of eternal darkness pulled away at me, or what I believed was me. Afraid of what I had become, I cried out loud in a muted voice, God, where am I? I'm unsure why I asked this, considering I didn't believe in the afterlife. Yet my empty consciousness found it necessary to ask. Alas, only darkness responded, or at least I assumed. After 1,000,000 decades or 1,000 seconds, a voice had finally responded from the void. Hell. This story is a large part of why I am terrified of dying, because I am so afraid that that's what it's like when you die. I'm also afraid that it's nothing and you have no idea it's nothing, which seems like it'd be fine because then you don't know, but my brain can't comprehend. Like, I can't comprehend that there was an existence and like things happening before I was born, and that like it was nothing for me, but I didn't know it was not. Like, it gives me like this weird feeling in my stomach because literally this perfectly explains one of my biggest fears. Such a good story, but it also really just ruined my day. Our next story is by the user Original Loquat 3788. Some people have such weird names on here. The story's called Teacher's Pet. Everybody hated Colin O'Mara. One time we were making soggy moggies, wetting toilet paper and throwing it at the ceiling, and he came waddling into the toilet and ran straight to get Mr. Driscoll. Well, that landed us all in detention. Every day, he brought in a shining red apple, put it on Mr. Driscoll's desk, and received a pat on the head like a good little boy. All the teachers felt sorry for Colin because he had something wrong with him. When he was a small kid, he'd tried to catch a rugby ball and it had hit him in the face. He had one eye blue and one eye brown. Heterochromia, I think they call it. Mr. Driscoll gave me the creeps. He wore a black suit like an undertaker and slapped down his black hair in a center parting with so much wax it looked like plastic. He had his merit chart on the wall, all our pictures up there, and the person who got the most got to pick the name of the new class hamster at Christmas. Of course, Colin won, and he picked Mr. Fudge because Colin liked fudge. Anyways, just before Christmas, Colin went missing, his chubby cheeks all over the news. He'd stayed behind after class one day and vanished on his way home. What if he's the hamster? Well, we had to stay in for a special assembly, and they brought in grief counselors, but as horrible as it is to say, nobody really missed Colin that much. After Christmas, we had to study for our exams, and I really knuckled down. Mr. Driscoll said he was pleasantly surprised by the improvement, and then the other kids started calling me Teacher's Pet. We got our new class hamster after Christmas too, and we honored Colin in a small way by keeping the name Mr. Fudge. One night, Mr. Driscoll asked me to stay behind. You know, William, if you keep this up, you'll get to name the new hamster after the spring term. He took Mr. Fudge from the cage and held him in a little too tight for my liking. Thank you, sir. Would you like to play with Mr. Fudge? I hesitated, but it seemed like an order more than a question. Oh my god. I could feel Mr. Fudge's belly rolls in between my fingers, his heart beating so fast it was one continuous motion. And then I looked into his tiny eyes, and it was the scariest thing I ever saw. One was blue, the other was brown. And don't listen to the other children, Mr. Driscoll said in the drawling way of his. There's nothing shameful about being the teacher's pet. This guy turned Colin into a hamster. I don't know what to say. That's a good story right there. Okay, our next story is by the user 1001 Nights. It's called I Had to Break Up with My Boyfriend After Visiting His Parents. I was excited to visit my new boyfriend, Jack's parents. I had met them once before. Gentle folk, sad from the tragedy of losing their other child, a daughter, a few years ago to cancer. Jack had bought me a new dress, with dark green and red pattern, which brought out the highlights of my chestnut hair. Jack's eyes lit up when he saw me in it. He said he couldn't wait for his parents to see me. We entered, and Jack helped me take off my winter coat. His mother's eyes welled up, and she left the hallway. His father frowned. Did Jack never tell you? His voice trailed off. I followed them into the living room. Hanging on the wall was a full-length photo portrait of a young woman with Jack's features and chestnut hair, wearing the same green and red dress. I turned to Jack angrily, but my anger turned to fear at the fixed look on his face. He took my hands. Sweetheart, don't be mad, he beseeched. They're always going on and on about Lucy. She was their favorite. I thought you might cheer them up. His grip tightened, and the fear and his confusion deepened. I looked at his parents helplessly. They were on the couch, his father's arm around his mother's slumping shoulders. She dabbed at her eyes. Please, darling, let's have dinner. Just a couple of hours, murmured Jack. My skin crawling, I dumbly nodded. Jack turned to his parents. Mom, Dad, we're starving. Mom got up. Where are your manners, John? Offer them drinks. Drinks in hand, the atmosphere relaxed. Jack started chattering. I love the photos you put up. Where did you even find these? This is our last ski trip. Lucy was such a champ. Do you remember? They gave into the desire to talk about their daughter, gesturing to what seemed like hundreds of photos in glinting silver and gilt frames on the walls. Of course, I could never ski like her, I heard Jack say. Lucy baked with Mom. My phone vibrated. Discreetly, I pulled it out, thanking God that Lucy had the good sense to wear a dress with pockets. One word from an unknown sender. Leave. I looked at the photo of Lucy, over her head doing some kind of school presentation. The slide in the photo shimmered, showing one word. Leave. I need to use the bathroom, I said. His mom showed me the guest bathroom, next to the front door. I went in, and as soon as she left, I slipped out and opened the door. Are you leaving us? Jack's father called from the other end of the hallway. I stared back. Suddenly, there was a huge crash from inside the living room. Glimpsing through, I saw the full-length photo of Lucy fall into the floor. Full-length photo? That's weird. Distracted, Jack's father turned, and I heard the startled cries of Jack and his mom. Grabbing my coat, I fled into the night. Wow. I'm still not over the fact that they have a full-length photo of her. It's giving the life-size Harry Styles poster I had in my bedroom in middle school. I don't know. As soon as I realized I was wearing the same dress as the dead girl, I probably would have left then, but that's good too. The next story is by the user LightningBoy737. The world ended yesterday. At least I think it did. I woke up just fine, went downstairs, ate my cereal, waited for the bus. Took a while for the sun to come up. I remember thinking. Bus didn't come. Nothing surprising there. It's always late. Decided to head back home so I could drive to school. Car wasn't in the driveway. Now I was worried. Someone stole it. Walked inside to let my parents know and call 911. Door wasn't there either. Neither was the garage. I pinched myself then. Decided to call the police. 911 didn't exist. Neither did the school's number. Tried to put my hands in my pockets to calm myself down. Pockets didn't exist. Or my hands. Tried to look around. My eyes didn't exist, though. Or my brain, so I didn't think I'd be able to register it. I think I slipped on some ice. I wouldn't know. Ice didn't exist, and neither did slipping. Heard crying for someone's mom. Maybe that was me. Moms and crying don't exist, is the thing. Then I heard the voice. Robotic. Female. Error in simulation corrected. Restarting to last memory backup. I bite into my slice of toast like I do every morning for school. That's interesting that she remembers that. Also kind of scary because what if that happens to us? That's interesting that she remembers that there was an issue. Like if the simulation restarted, you'd think that it would just erase like the memory of the failure, but that's really freaky that she remembers. Also, I'm wondering, is it like a loop where it just keeps like going through the same cycle? Because that's even worse. I really like how this was written though. Everything's like sentence, period, period, period. Like very doot, doot, doot. I like it. Good story. The next story is by the user Forgotten Well. A doomsday prepper goes into a nursing home. The worst part about being a doomsday prepper was the crickets. When the weather was bright, my father would take me out to the field just out of town and we'd walk around until he'd find a nice dead log. He'd roll the log over and snatch up as many critters as he could. When the world's ending, you won't have the luxury of McDonald's. You're gonna have to eat whatever you can find. Then he'd put the bugs in my hand and say, "Show me you're a survivor." He refused to take me home until every bug was eaten. It's real good. Looking back at it all, I guess the craziest part about that was that I actually believed my dad. He'd say, "Any day now, Maddie. Any day. When the nukes go off, it's game over. When it's kill or be killed, only the prepared will survive." Honestly, I think I'm plenty prepared from watching all of the seasons of The Walking Dead, thank you. I was just a kid. I didn't know any better. My father pulled me out of school in kindergarten so he could homeschool me. I was never around any kids. My father taught me that friends were just people who would be harder to kill in the apocalypse. God, that's a sad life. I had nobody around me to tell me that my father was crazy. I didn't figure that out until I was practically a full-grown man. As I got older and the world didn't end, my father and I grew apart. I moved on with my life and found a sense of normalcy I'd never known. My father had stayed convinced the world was going to end. I couldn't convince him otherwise, no matter how many times I tried. He endlessly practiced survival drills and target practices for decades until he was an old man. Dementia runs in the family, and I had to put my father in a nursing home. It was the hardest thing I ever had to do, not because I loved him or anything. It was hard because he refused to leave his doomsday supplies behind. Has dementia, still remembers the doomsday supplies. The only way I was able to convince him was by pointing out that the nursing home had a pharmacy in the building, and if the world ended, he could raid their supply of pharmaceuticals. In the nursing home, my father started having doubts. He was close to death now, and the world hadn't ended yet. He started to realize that he wasted his whole life. The man had ruined my childhood, but I couldn't help feeling sorry for him. Every time I visited, it looked like all the joy had been sucked right out of him. So one night, while visiting him, I made a stupid decision and lied to my father. "Dad," I said, "it just happened." "What happened?" "A nuke just hit New York City." My father's eyes lit up, and he simply said, "Finally." This is an interesting reaction. I thought I was giving him closure before he died. Then my father walked over to his closet and pulled out a pistol he had hidden. "Let the killing begin." I don't understand what the point of that was. Like, was he planning on putting a whole show on for him? How was he planning on convincing him of this lie and keeping it going until he died? I mean, that was rather stupid, if you ask me. I mean, tell the guy when he's, like, about to take his last breath, but not when, like, what are you gonna do for the last few months he's alive? You're gonna pretend that the apocalypse has happened? The next story is by the user K_G_Lewis. It's called The Forgetting Room. I ran behind Jody, following her into the bathroom at the end of the hall. Once both of us were safely inside, I slammed the door shut and pressed my back against it. As I stood there, panting, trying to calm my racing heart, a wave of dizziness came over me. When it passed, I realized I had no idea where I was or why I was there. "Where are we?" Jody asked. Apparently, she couldn't remember either. I looked around at the dirty and dilapidated bathroom, hoping I might remember something, but nothing came to mind. I have no idea. It was clear that the bathroom hadn't been used in years, if not decades. Most of the paint had long peeled off the walls. The mirror that had once hung over the sink now lay in pieces on the floor, and all of the fixtures were covered in rust and grime. "I don't like it here," Jody said. "Neither do I admitted. "Then let's get out of here." She nodded at the door behind me. I turned around and pulled the door open, revealing a familiar-looking hallway. As soon as I stepped out of the bathroom, my memory returned. "We're in the Shadburn house," I blurted out. Jody and I had entered the old abandoned house on a dare. "How long have we been here?" Jody was looking at the dawn light shining through the gable windows. "It shouldn't be that early. It was only 10 p.m. when we went in." "It shouldn't be that early. It was only 10 p.m. when we went into the house, and as far as I was aware, we hadn't been inside that long. Too long, I replied. Let's get out of here. I ran for the stairs but didn't make it very far before a shadowy apparition stepped out of a nearby doorway, blocking my path. Go back! Go back! I yelled. When I turned around, I saw Jody running back towards the bathroom. I quickly followed her, slamming the bathroom door shut behind me. Once I was safely inside, I stood there panting, trying to calm my racing heart. A wave of dizziness came over me. When it passed, I realized I had no idea where I was or why I was there. Where are we? Jody asked. Here's the autopsy report on those 2 teens you found in the Shadburn house. The medical examiner handed the detective the report. Organ failure due to acute dehydration. The detective read the cause of death out loud. How is that possible? They weren't locked in the house. Why'd they stay there if they could have left any time they wanted? I can only tell you how they died, the medical examiner replied. The why is for you to find out. That's really good. All right, we have one more story. It's by the user Emma Watson but Dumber. It's called Sir, Please Step Out of the Vehicle. Sir, please step out of the vehicle. What did I do? I wasn't speeding. I stayed in my lane. Put your mouth on the breathalyzer and blow. I obeyed. The taste of the device was weird. I had never tested my sobriety before. Do you really need to touch it with your mouth? That's so unhygienic. All right, now wait here for the results. What results? Don't they show up pretty fast? The police car keeps flashing red and blue, but I can't see any badge on the policeman. I'm trying to make out the details of the breathalyzer. It tasted sweet. Was it even showing any numbers? Was it turned off? The policeman isn't in uniform. Weird. Can they just stop people outside their shift? I need to sit down a second. I'm feeling a bit dizzy. And then they turned off their headlights. That's terrifying. I've heard so many stories of if you get pulled over by an unmarked vehicle, you should always call 911 to confirm, to make sure that it is a real police officer and not just some scary person. That's really actually so many things to worry about in the world. You don't think a fake cop who's going to drug you and kidnap you is going to be one of them. So that story is scary because it's also kind of realistic. So if you get pulled over by an unmarked car, call 911 before letting them drug you. Anyway, let me know what your guys' favorite story was. I really, really like this batch of stories, personally. I think they were very interesting. But again, let me know what your favorite story was. Let me know what you thought of them. And if you guys like this video, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up. If you are new here, click the subscribe button down below and turn my post notifications so you never miss a video. I post every Sunday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for Spooky Sundays. Again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next week. Bye.